Hello, Dr. Grande here. Today I'll be analyzing the case of Christian Sims and Ashley Morrison. This case was featured on an episode of a Netflix series titled I Am a Killer. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Ashley Eva Morrison was born on October 1, 1997, and lived in Paris, Texas. Her family moved there in 2008 when she was 11 years old. Ashley did not always get along too well with her parents, which may have contributed to what happens later on. In school, Ashley played the clarinet. While in band, she met another clarinet player named Christian Vernon Sims. He was 1 year younger than Ashley. Christian was described as mysterious, standoffish, and isolated. Typically, a bond formed through a mutual love of the clarinet would not be considered particularly hazardous. It's not like connecting over a love of heroin or something. But Christian was not your average clarinet player. He had lived with his mother, Lisa Hurst, and her boyfriend, Anthony Trent Barber. But that changed after an incident in 2006. Paramedics were called to the home of Lisa Hurst, where they found 8-year-old Christian unresponsive, blue in color, and on the verge of death. When he was taken to a hospital, his core body temperature was measured at 87.5 degrees. He had many bruises on his body, and fentanyl and morphine were found in his system. When Christian was well enough to talk, he accused his mother's boyfriend, Anthony, of drugging and attacking him. Anthony was charged with injuring Christian. On November 9, 2007, Anthony Trent Barber was found guilty. The sentence he received was 20 years in prison. Christian was removed from the care of his mother and adopted by his grandparents, Annie Lois Sims and Mike Sims. He lived with them in their house in Powderly, Texas. This is 11 miles north of Paris, Texas. Christian's grandmother, Annie, was a retired schoolteacher and, by almost all accounts, treated him well. Moving back to Ashley's relationship with Christian, after meeting in school, the couple became romantically involved. Christian had disagreements with his grandparents and decided to move out. He ended up in the home of Ashley's parents in October 2014. According to Ashley, Christian had an anger problem, which made his presence in the home frightening. Despite this, she had plans to run away with him. On December 16, 2014, the teenage lovers exchanged text messages which pointed toward trouble. Christian wrote, "I'm going to my grandparents and robbing them blind. I guess we will have to start early." Ashley responded, "Yet without a car or money." Christian stated, "We can do it tonight." Ashley appeared to be concerned about this, writing, "I don't know if she's going to let me go or not, especially if Dad gets involved." Presumably, the pronoun she was used in reference to her mother. Christian defiantly wrote, "Well, they can blank off. I will kill your dad." Ashley responded with the brief message, "Okie dokie." Just after midnight, now on December 17, 2014, Christian and Ashley left the home of Ashley's parents. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. On December 18, 2014, Annie's mother called 911 after finding Annie dead on the back porch of Annie's house. Again, Annie was Christian's grandmother. Here is what the police found during the course of their investigation. 66-year-old Annie Sims was lying face down in a pool of blood. She had been shot in the head. Several items were missing, including Annie's silver 2012 Toyota Highlander, her purse, including credit cards which were inside of it, a revolver chambered in .38 Special, and a semi-automatic pistol chambered in 9mm Parabellum. 16-year-old Christian Sims and 17-year-old Ashley Morrison were nowhere to be found. The police contacted the credit card companies to see if any of Annie's cards had been used. They learned that one of them had been used 3 times, including at a Walmart in McAlester, Oklahoma. This happened not long before Annie's body was discovered. McAlester is 86 miles north of Powderly. The police in Oklahoma paid a visit to the Walmart store and viewed the surveillance video. Christian and Ashley could be seen buying items using Annie's credit card and leaving in her silver 2012 Toyota Highlander. The police asked Christian's cell phone carrier to ping his phone and learned the phone was traveling north. The Highlander was observed in a parking lot of a Motel 6 in Sapulpa, Oklahoma, 167 miles north of Powderly, Texas. Christian and Ashley had rented room 275 in that motel. At 8:25 p.m., they were both arrested without incident. Christian immediately stated Ashley had nothing to do with it. It was all me. Inside the motel room, there were several items of interest, including a loaded 9mm pistol, 6 knives, and a white towel containing a bloodstain. Here is the story that Christian supplied to the police. After leaving the home of Ashley's parents, he and Ashley knocked on the door of a house and asked the occupant for a ride. They were dropped off at a location that was near both the house of Christian's aunt and the house of his grandparents. The couple walked to the house of Christian's aunt and found that no one was home. Christian broke into the house and took a rifle. He told Ashley to wait there and he would be back in 15 minutes. At this point, Christian walked to his grandparents' house. Only his grandmother Annie was home at this time. He threw rocks at the house to lure his grandmother outside before shooting her to death. Christian took Annie's vehicle, returned to Ashley, and drove to Oklahoma, where he and Ashley were arrested. When Ashley was interviewed by the police, she denied knowing that Annie was dead. She claimed that Christian did not have the rifle when he left his aunt's house. Ashley indicated that she was afraid that Christian would harm her family if she did not go with him. During a second interview with the police, Ashley changed her story and said that Christian did have the rifle with him. She was aware of Christian's plan to murder his grandparents and helped him load the weapon. On October 18, 2016, Christian Sims pleaded guilty to murder and was sentenced to 35 years in prison. His projected release date is December 19, 2049. However, he is eligible for parole on June 20, 2032, so he could be released at the age of 34. Ashley decided to take her case to trial. In July 2017, she was convicted of murder under the law of parties in Texas. This law states that all conspirators are guilty of any felony committed by any one of them in furtherance of the conspiracy, even if there was no intent to commit that felony. It's similar to the felony murder rule, except broader. The sentence Ashley received was 30 years in prison. She appealed her conviction and was successful, but of course the state intended on trying her again. To avoid this, Ashley took a plea bargain in November 2019. She pleaded guilty to murder in exchange for receiving a prison sentence not to exceed 30 years. On March 4, 2020, she was sentenced to 30 years in prison. So Ashley was right back where she started, even though she pleaded guilty. It's not unusual when a person pleads guilty, they would expect a slightly lower sentence. Her projected release date is December 17, 2044, but Ashley could be released as early as December 17, 2029, at the age of 32. Now moving to my analysis. As I mentioned, the case of Christian Sims and Ashley Morrison was featured on a Netflix series titled I Am a Killer. It has caused a good deal of controversy. Some people think that Ashley was not guilty. Others think she was guilty. However, they think her sentence of 30 years was too harsh. Ashley Morrison maintains her innocence, sort of. I believe she pleaded guilty because she felt somewhat responsible for the death of Annie Sims, and she was hoping to get a sentence of less than 30 years. In the episode, she stated that she deserved to be incarcerated for her part, but was not happy with the length of her sentence. Prison is never as much fun as people think. I will examine both Ashley's guilt and her sentence. Let's take a look at the factors both for and against the idea that Ashley was guilty of murder under the law of parties. Starting with the inculpatory factors. Not long before the murder, Ashley received a text message from Christian indicating he was going to take his grandparents' property. He specifically referred to conducting a robbery. It's not like he just planned on taking some of their property when they were not home. Christian intended on using force. Ashley could have warned Annie Sims of the impending attack, but she did not. In another text message, Christian indicated he would kill Ashley's father. Ultimately, he did not do that, but this still indicates he was having homicidal thoughts. Christian was not a safe person to be around. Ashley ran away with Christian voluntarily. She admitted to assisting Christian, for example, handing him cartridges that were used in the murder weapon. After the murder, she fled with Christian to Oklahoma. She had many opportunities to notify the police, but she failed to do so. Now moving to the exculpatory factors. At the time of the murder, Ashley was in an intense relationship with a manipulative and violent individual. She claimed that Christian threatened to kill her family members if she did not go with them. The text message about Christian killing her father could be interpreted as supporting Ashley's claim. When Ashley left the home of her parents, she did not have her cell phone. This restricted her ability to contact the authorities or to otherwise call for assistance. Handling cartridges that are later used in a murder is different than helping somebody load a murder weapon. Ashley's use of the term okie dokie after Christian threatened to kill her father was interpreted by the state as her agreeing with Christian, but she may have just been dismissing him, almost like she was saying, okay, whatever. Ashley stated that she was brushing him off. At the very least, okie dokie could be thought of as ambiguous. It's certainly not a well-accepted term confirming agreement to a criminal conspiracy. You never hear a mafia hitman who received instructions to kill saying something like, I accept, tell the Godfather, okie dokie. After the murder, Christian told Ashley he killed Annie, but Ashley claimed she did not really believe him. Maybe she was not aware of what was going on when she traveled to Oklahoma with Christian. Perhaps Ashley believed Christian simply took Annie's credit cards and her vehicle, but there was never any type of confrontation or murder. Like Christian was exaggerating in an effort to sound more dramatic and menacing. This whole situation was exciting and intense. He was just trying to add to that. When considering all the evidence in this case, do I believe Ashley was guilty of murder? No. In my opinion, she was not guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. I think she was guilty in reality, considering the wide scope of the law of parties, but the state did not have a strong case. Moving to the sentence, was a 30-year prison term a fair sentence for Ashley? Running under the assumption that Ashley was responsible for everything the state claimed, I believe 30 years was too harsh. Christian is the one who wanted to commit the murder. He is the one who shot his grandmother. He took her vehicle. Christian was the primary perpetrator. I know this doesn't matter under the law of parties, but this law does not make a lot of sense, and Texas is notorious for taking this law too far. They vigorously apply this law every chance they get. Furthermore, Ashley played a very small role in the crime and pleaded guilty. She accepted responsibility. I would have gone with something more like 5 years in prison. With all this in mind, what do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. Christian Sims had been terribly mistreated by his mother's boyfriend, Anthony. The Netflix documentary talks about some of what he endured, but there is actually much more. It's not really surprising that Christian became a dangerous individual. He was self-centered, impulsive, immature, irresponsible, aggressive, violent, manipulative, deceptive, cold, callous, and had a sense of entitlement. Christian was ready to take on the world and express his hatred for everyone. He wanted everything to burn. His grandmother was unlucky because she happened to be in his path. Christian claimed that his grandmother committed offenses against him which were worse than what Anthony did, but I believe he was lying. He is just trying to explain his crime in some way that doesn't make him look like a monster. Ashley Morrison was immature, insecure, desperate, irresponsible, and vulnerable. She selected an inferior romantic partner and was swept away by the intensity of her feelings. Caught up in the excitement, Ashley went along with Christian's behavior, but did not fully understand what he was capable of or what he intended to do. Ashley viewed her romance with Christian as one big party, but she should have been focused on the law of parties. There is this sense that Ashley had no idea that she could be on the hook for murder simply by knowing it might occur and running away with Christian. Again, the part that Ashley played was relatively small. Now moving to my final thoughts. The lesson learned in this case is about the danger of impulsivity. I talked about this trait in other videos. It is one of the most dangerous traits a person can possess. Impulsivity is a significant predictor of violence, especially when paired with emotional instability. Furthermore, it is strongly associated with entering or remaining in a toxic or dangerous relationship. When two impulsive lovers are together, they tend to reinforce each other's bad decisions. They transform into a machine designed to cause chaos. Those are my thoughts on the case of Christian Sims and Ashley Morrison. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. I just want to offer another quick reminder about my Patreon account. It has a lot of pre-release videos on it. I think there are over 300, if I'm not mistaken. There's a lot on there. And those videos stay in pre-release mode typically for a long time. As I mentioned, it's not like they stay on there for just a couple of days before I release them to the public. They're often on there for months, if not over a year. So I'll put the link in the description of this video. Please consider supporting me on Patreon. Thank you so much.